it's like 35 degrees here tonight. I'm in Springfield, Massachusetts, where they didn't get the note about spring, apparently. And yes, it's called Springfield, but it's April something, and it's still really cold. That's okay. All is well. Episode 155 of Coast to Coast Pinball. Let's go. Welcome to Coast to Coast Pinball. My name is Nate Shivers. This is a podcast commentary. I'm a man out of quarters. Joining me tonight for episode 155 is Bowen Cairns. I think you probably all know who Bowen is. 3-time Papa world champion, 2-time state champion of Massachusetts, and the man who was so patient with me tonight as I ran into probably the worst technical difficulties I've ever had here on Coast to Coast Pinball. I have been very lucky 154 episodes of not having too many problems or issues with my recordings or anything like that. But tonight, I gotta tell you, just the Wi-Fi in the hotel I'm at did not want to cooperate, and I had a really bad connection. So I really apologize first to Bowen, and second to the listeners of Coast to Coast Pinball for some really sketchy dropouts. I did as much editing as I could stand to do tonight to try and clean it up. I think you'll all get the gist of everything Bowen has to say. He has some fantastic insight into tournament pinball, gameplay, some awesome stories about, listen, there's only a handful of players who are still competing at this level that have been competing for 20 plus years in competitive pinball, and Bowen's definitely one of them. I really appreciate his time. In fact, I want to let everyone know that Bowen and I are going to team up a little bit and do an ongoing segment for Coast to Coast Pinball that I'll give you the basic rundown of it now. I don't have a name for it, and you know how great I am at naming segments for things, so it'll come. Or Steve Bowden will name it for me, one or the other. But basically what we're going to do going forward after episode 155 is I'm going to do basically throw a game out to Bowen that is a common game in tournament pinball. And I scoured Papa, Indisc, state championships from around the country, Southern Fried Expo last year, Michigan. I looked at a ton of different tournaments and sort of said, what games commonly pop up in these tournaments? And what we're going to do is have Bowen give you 3 to 5 minutes roughly, just sort of his basic idea of what you should try and do on these games, in his opinion. If you get to a tournament and you walk up and see, say, AC/DC, and you don't know AC/DC that well, Bowen is going to give you some advice on how to score well or how to not put up a goose egg on AC/DC. So we're going to do a bunch of those, and we're going to drop them into episodes for the next few months. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So I really think that that's going to be a nice addition to the show. Again, sorry about the quality of this Skype call. It got me. I finally got, as they say. So, but anyway, it's totally listenable. Bowen's awesome. Thank you very much for coming on the show, and thank you guys for listening. So without further ado, here's Bowen Cairns. I would like to welcome to Coast Pinball, Mr. Bowen Cairns. How are you, sir?
Great. Good evening. How are you?
I'm good. I'm in the state of Massachusetts, as are you, I imagine, this evening.
I'm in Salem, Massachusetts, where they famously killed all those people, and now they turned it into a tourist industry.
Wow, I'm in Springfield, Massachusetts, where I don't think they famously did much, but there's a growing heroin problem, I hear.
There's also the National Basketball Hall of Fame.
Oh, there we go.
Shoot some hoops.
There we go. There's a basketball court at my hotel, which I thought was odd, but now I know why. That makes sense. Welcome. I think this is excellent timing having you on the show. I've wanted to have you on for a long time. You're probably the person that I get more emails about, like, hey, you should meet Bowen sometime and have Bowen on the show. I'm like, yeah, I've met Bowen. I want to have him on the show. So this is, I think, great timing. We're post-Papa, pre-Pinburg. There's lots going on, lots to talk about. So thank you very much for spending some time with us tonight here.
Absolutely. It's wonderful to be on. It's kind of humbling to be in that category at all, because the people who make pinball happen are the manufacturers, the software guys, there's so many other people who are making pinball happen. I'm just glad to be part of it.
It's funny, when I first started doing this show, I kind of said early on, I don't really want to do interviews, because in my head, interviews meant, the designers who've sort of told their stories about designing their games over and over, and we knew those stories. But it started occurring to me as I met more players on the scene and at tournaments, guys like you, guys like Bowden, all these guys. I'm like, wow, these are huge personalities and interesting people that I think would be very entertaining to listen to talk about the game, talk about competition. And so don't sell yourself short. I think that there's a lot to talk about, and you're clearly one of the ambassadors to pinball as a hobbyist sport, or whatever we want to call it here.
And it's been interesting even hearing from the new players, like the interviews you were doing with Kiesler and people who aren't well-known competitive players, but everyone has their story about getting into pinball, getting hooked on it, and the things they're doing to start hooking other players or just keep up with their own addiction.
You have a great perspective because you've been involved with competitive pinball for, over 20 years now?
Yes, my first pinball tournament that I can remember was Pinball Expo 1993.
1993. So you were young at that point. You were, what, 16, 17, 18, somewhere in that range?
Yes, I was 17. And I just said, you know what, this is supposedly this giant event with all these pinball people gathering, and let's go. Let's meet people. Let's see what a competition looks like. Because I'd heard about people like Lyman Sheets, and I was just eager to learn. I got to go to college out in California at Stanford and met Neil Schatz and Rick Stetta and this other guy, Mark Conant, players who taught me a ton about pinball, especially the nudging and the moves that you can make to keep the ball alive. I had been playing on my own. I had no idea that moving the machine was even allowed. I was great at aiming, but that was it. Ball went to the outline. I'm just, whatever, it's gone. But meeting those people in California and starting to go to tournaments just completely turned it around for me.
Were you naturally good at pinball right from the start when you first started playing, or did it beat you up like it does lots of us?
I started playing at a very young age. My father was into pinball, and I can remember going to an underground arcade at a hotel in Miami Beach, Florida, around age 6 or 7. That's my earliest memory of pinball. Playing a game with a crazy white light in the upper left corner behind targets that if you hit the white light, the game went haywire. And I remember hitting the light and just getting hooked on it and go like, yeah, awesome. I found out later that was sharpshooter.
Yeah.
But I had no idea. I was just like, let's just hit stuff and enjoy. And I don't remember being very good at it. I think around when I was about age 10, 11, I got good enough at pinball that I could get a couple replays. My dad moved on to golf, and I started playing more and more pinball through high school, to the point where I put on my college application that I had scored 800 million on a pinball machine. And as one of the things supposedly to impress the committee. And I got in, so I guess it worked.
On that. So note to any of those folks looking for a college. Did you ride the video game wave? Because you're of the age where you saw the rise of the home video game console. Was that important to you as a young guy?
There were definitely some video games I got into. I liked some Intellivision, some Atari 2600, and even the arcade games. I got really good at MISPAC. But I definitely moved closer and closer to pinball over time, partially because of the variance in it. That just weird stuff happens when you're playing pinball. Ball gets squirrely or spins over your flipper, or these weird collisions can happen, and those are the things that hook you. They're like 1 in a million shots. The kind of things where if it happens to you in competition, you feel so screwed.
Yep.
But at the same time, those are the reasons you're coming back to play pinball for 20 years. I can't think of wanting to play Miss Pac-Man for 20 years. Donkey Kong, people are playing that for 20 years, and it's partially because of the randomness, these wild barrels and difficult things that happen in the game that are inconsistent with just playing it the same way over and over again.
You know, I'm looking back at you're still very much, I mean, I think one of the great things about pinball is you can start it at age 6 and play till you're dead, basically.
Thanks.
You're on a roll, but I was looking at something interesting, and I know you're a math guy. You won Papa 4, Papa 8, and Papa 16. So there's 2 ways we can go here. You're either going to win Papa 28 or 32 by my bad math calculations here. What's your plan there? Are we going to disrupt this number sequence we've got going?
My plan was actually to look at the online integer sequences directory and find a sequence that went 4, 8, 16, 17. which I found one.
Oh, there was one.
And then failing that, I found another one that went 4, 8, 16, 18, and now I've failed that too. So I have to go back online and find 4, 8, 16, 19. If I never win another world championship, that will be just fine. I've had some great experiences, and a near miss this year, but the opportunity to be there with the best players in the world is really a treat. And it's an opportunity to be an athlete for a few weekends a year and get that feeling, that energy. You wake up and it's the morning of the Papa World Championship final, and it's that feeling that anything can happen on that day. You could blow out in the first round. You could go all the way to the finals and just sweep everything. It's all kind of out there, and you just have this energy that's hard to contain. In fact, it can get in your way if you're not prepared for it. And the first time I went to Papa in New York City in '94, I didn't really understand what being in the finals was like, as far as the nerves and the energy and the money and the pressure and the attention. In fact, that was actually very helpful to me, not having any clue about that stuff. It took all the pressure away, where I would love not to have that pressure when I go play in these finals. It's funny watching you and Keith Elwin in the finals, and I compared you guys to Michael Jordan and Larry Bird on a show right after Papa, because really, if we had to pick, like, in the last 20 years, the two names to put at the top, the first two heads on the pinball players Mount Rushmore, it would be you two guys. Very different players, very different. Keith is very kind of silent and stoic, and you are dancing and doing circles. And there's this style that Keith Elwin has where he's very stoic, and I think that there's sort of this repetitive nature to him. I feel like he's got a scalpel to the game, where he's trying to get this direct path to something really critical and to get high points. And you can actually see him do that in the clinching game this year when he played on Circus Voltaire, and he was willing to switch strategies during the game just because he found something that was working, and he was able to continue working that to achieve and win the game. He just went for Ringmaster, which I don't think very many players would normally have chosen to do in Voltaire.
Is that because it seems like sort of a basic lower point total route to go on that game?
Well, in Voltaire, it's usually phenomenally dangerous to go for the Ringmaster, because you hit the Ringmaster and then the ball's out of control. But he was able to hit the Ringmaster in a way that returned the ball back down towards the flippers. And unlike most Voltaires, where if your ball is on the left side or the right side, it's usually not that big a deal because it's probably going in lane. This game was set the opposite, where if it goes down either of those areas, you're probably done. So what another player might do, where I was going for juggler, and so was Adam Lefkoff. Ray Davidson was going for strike and arc multi-ball, and he was able to handle that to the tune of 10 or 12 shots all on the same ball. And that was the clinching championship ball.
Wow. So you have 3 Papa first place finishes. How many second place finishes?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. My logic is you win or you lose, and so I don't actually keep track of second, third, or fourth. I think I finished second once at Papa, back at Papa 11. That was the game where Elwin came back on last ball of Adam's Family from down over 100 million to steal the championship from everybody, including me.
Wow. What's it like now? We just went through Papa 18, and you've been there since. Was 4 your first one?
Yes, I first went to Papa 4 February '94. The New York City experience was really amazing because it was in a ballroom, and there were just a lot of media attention because you're in New York City, and you get national media attention. We were on ESPN. We were on the Today Show. We were on the Tonight Show. I got offered the Tonight Show and had to turn it down for winning Papa 4. And I made a bad decision. I was offered to be on the Tonight Show with Jay Leno, and I was told by my school that if I went there, I would fail at least one class and maybe more.
Oh,
and it's clear that the right choice was to go to the Tonight Show. just fail, you know? Yeah, you can still come back and take more classes in school. But then again, I can say I turned Jay Leno down, which is kind of fun.
That's a good one. What's Papa 18 like to you? As far as, is it an evolution? Is it growth? Is it just different? What do you see that the last few Papas like since you've been there for so long?
The biggest difference in Papa today versus Papa back in New York City is that the number of high-level players and players who are capable of winning a world title is much higher than it ever was back then. There are 100 players who all are incredibly strong players, and they're learning more. I think if you took any one of those players and shoved them back into the 90s to play at Papa 4, they might win. Where we were looking back then at the scores on games and what it took to do well, and the difficulty level of the machines in those Papas to be so much more difficult, and yet players are managing to get these enormous scores. I remember at Papa 4 or Papa 5, they had Creature from the Black Lagoon in the qualifying, and people were panicked and not doing well and barely getting the multi-balls, and now we see Elwin and Belcito putting up 900 million on it in qualifying at Papa 18. So there's just such a difference, I think, in the overall quality of players. Now the top tier players, I think, are as good as they were then. Lyman Sheets was probably the most dominant player then, and he's still an incredible player today.
Talking about qualifying, and specifically this year, I think I ran into you, was it Friday night or Saturday? At some point, I just remember seeing you, and someone asked how many tickets you'd put in, and you said, I haven't played a game over there yet. And everyone just shook their head and laughed, and I woke up the next morning, and you had put in one ticket in the A category, and you had the top qualifying score at that point. Tell me about your process there of not playing those games for the 2 days you were around them and playing classics, and then just throwing up the top qualifying score.
There wasn't really any rhyme or reason to that. I try to get to Papa early enough in the morning that I can maybe play an A entry, and then I focus on classics to try and qualify in the classics. If I don't qualify in classics or I'm eliminated, then I go play an A to qualify for the Classics 2 final in my last tickets, and then just completely crap the bed in the finals. And usually if you just get eliminated from a Classics, you head right over to A and wash down your misery with a terrible ticket in A. And I started that ticket with an immediate 0 on Creature, under 50 million game. I'm not sure what happened, but I think that something like that can take the pressure off. Where you just go, screw it, let's just go play, whatever. Banged out a good score on Black Rose, banged out a good score on CSI, and then going to Funhouse and Simpsons, I kind of had in my head, you know what? If I do really well on these games, maybe I can make it with this ticket. It didn't feel like a very strong ticket until those last 2 games.
A lot of tickets with zeros this year.
The last 2 games went really well. The Funhouse ended up being a number 1, and the Simpsons was a top 10.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you still study games when you see a game like, I don't know, CSI or Black Rose in there that's not, it's common enough for you, I'm sure, over the years, but maybe not a game you see that often out in the world. Do you go and study ahead of time, or do you kind of just pick it up when you get there?
Every single game I play in Papa A qualifying, I want to watch at least 2 or 3 other players play the game before I get on it. And I also want to find out any information I can about just... On Funhouse, you want to know how it feeds out of the kick out on the right-hand side. On Simpsons, you want to know if that when you make the garage, will it fall into the bumpers? Is it easier from the left flip or the right? Every single game has bits and pieces like this. On Black Rose, we found out that the cannon wasn't firing very well. And so the normal strategy of going for sink ships was not really attainable in the way that it normally might be. These are all things that you can either pay $20 to find out, or you can watch these monitors and talk to the other players who are trying to qualify. I think that is something that I really enjoy about the process of playing tournament pinball. You're making adjustments, you're learning, you're trying things out. You might be in the middle of a game and realize this isn't working, I'm going to go switch. And that ability to change your process is, I think, one of the reasons that I have success in events. And I see it from Mark Steinman and Papa, the way he sets up machines. He actually almost wants players to try and adjust and change and rebalance the way that they might normally play a game. It's it really becomes at that point not just about your skill of playing the game, but your skill of thinking about the game and your approach as you step up.
With the schedule change this summer, where we had Papa move to the spring and Pinburg is now into the summer, I wanted to kind of get into the Replay FX a little bit, and specifically Pinburg, which, if people listening to the show don't know, you are sort of the brainchild. You invented Pinburg as this idea of having the largest match play tournament in the world. Tell me how it came to be. Tell me how you got Kevin on board, and tell me about your role as one of the tournament organizers.
Yeah, I mean, at first I don't want to oversell me being the man behind Pinburg, because the people who are most behind Pinburg are Kevin Martin, Mark Steinman, Doug Polka, Elizabeth Cromwell, all of the other new facility for, I guess the first tournament was Papa 7. That would have been, I don't know, whatever 18 minus 7 is. You figure out what year that was, I guess. I started bothering him with emails and saying, you know what, you really should do a match play tournament. You have enough games. You're probably the only one who would be capable of running a really good match play tournament. And the original idea that I had was basically the World Series of Poker, which at the time was super popular. They were getting 8,000 players at the World Series of Poker. And the idea was to get everybody to show up and just start them in a poker style. And we had been playing actually these poker side tournaments in pinball for a few years, and they were all right. But that kind of died. Then around 2006, we started running a tournament in New England called the New England Pinball Championship, which still operates. And the format of the New England Pinball Championship was you run for half the day with everyone. At the halfway point, you split people into A and B division based on how they've performed, and then you play the rest of the tournament with those splits. Then at the very end, you say, okay, you people are in the finals for A and B, the rest of you are out. But it was very well received because everybody got a guaranteed amount. First player is as good as the experience for the best player. I'm going to have a great time at Pinburg no matter what. Elwyn is going to have a great time. But it's someone who's never been to a pinball tournament before, someone who's never really had a good experience, someone who wants to introduce themselves to other pinball players. But in the Papa qualifying format, it's such a churn that you get in, you play your 5 games, and then somebody basically gives you a message saying, you suck, you're out. Yeah. That's all they can do. They have so much throughput that they have, and they only have those games set up. And so it is at Expo. So it is at Texas Pinball Fest. The people who you would most want to bring into pinball tournaments are the people who are getting the worst experiences.
That makes a lot of sense. How much does it bum you out now that you don't get to play in Pinburg?
I get this question a lot, and my answer is always the same. I love it. I get the same feeling that I get on Sunday at Papa on Thursday at Pinburg. Because you wake up that first morning and all these players are going to come out. You don't know what's going to happen. You could blow out in the first round. You could go all the way and do great. By that I mean, like, you don't know whether the software is going to work. You don't know whether the power is going to go out. And the second year of Pinburg, we had in the first round we had attached too many games to one of the circuit, and we had it back running within 10 minutes.
Wow!
The other groups were still going. In fact, most people didn't even find out it happened. And our rules are set up so that if a game goes down and it comes back up again, if you know the scores, you just pick up where you left off. If you don't know the scores, you start over. And the simplified rules, and I think that you're seeing that actually now with the Papa IFPA shared rule system for malfunctions and game issues. They're very simple rules that can be followed continuously, and everything gets going faster. Something goes wrong, basically you're screwed is the short answer.
Yep.
But if it's not your fault, you'll get a new ball on another game, but you don't get any kind of state compensation, or no one's going to go in and set up the game for you to rebuild set up your multi-ball, for example.
You mentioned the New England Pinball Championships. You play pretty actively in the New England, it's Pinball League, is that the name of it?
Yeah, New England Pinball League is just finished its 8th season, and we took the format from the Pittsburgh Pinball League, which runs 3 different sessions a week. And we had tried for several years to get a big league running in New England, but the problem is no one could agree where to meet. They're from different places on different days, and everyone gets to pick to come on one day of the week. Then you all gather for finals at one large location. So I usually play on Tuesday nights at Lanes and Games in Cambridge, Mass. But a lot of people are playing at the Pinball Wizard Arcade on Mondays in New Hampshire, or they're playing at several locations in Maine on Sunday, or they're playing at Sanctum in Connecticut on Wednesday, or they're playing in Vermont on Thursday. It's wild. There's a chapter now in every New England state. All 6 New England states have somewhere to go during the week for New England Pinball League.
That's fantastic. Do you still get a thrill out of the competition on sort of a local level?
It's different, but I really enjoy it. It's more social. It's more fun. You're not worried as much about the prizes. At least I'm not. I actually do see players get to our final rounds, or they're put in a group with me, and they're like, "Oh God, here we go." Yeah. And there's something funny to that, because if you get beat on any game, somebody gets to take that as a badge and beat Bowen, and that's great. It definitely happens. It happens all the time. And then when you get to finals, someone's nervous because they're playing for cash for the first time, or they're playing for a trophy, and I think that's where I have a definite advantage, that I don't really feel New England League. I don't feel that pressure. It's been wonderful. It's been social. I've been meeting a lot of people from all over different states that would not have gathered before this happened, and I'm really proud of the league organizers. There's a long list of league organizers, one for each location, so I don't want to make a mistake by forgetting somebody by giving that list, but the number of people responsible for building that league is significant. And I think that this is true nationally and internationally. There are so many people putting time and effort into volunteer work for pinball that they just deserve a thank you. Anytime you see a volunteer or a tournament organizer, the next time you feel like yelling at somebody because their rules suck, or you're just pissed off at losing, just cram it. Go tell the organizer that they did a great job, and thank them for the time and effort they're putting in. Because you see the other half of that effort. You don't see Papa or Trent setting up the machines and taking them down on Wednesday morning and Sunday night at Expo. You don't see all of the time and effort that people are pouring into Replay FX. You're just going to see the actual event.
Yeah, absolutely. That's well put. Do you follow the new games as they come out from Stern or from some of the newer manufacturers, whether it be Jack or some of the boutique, or are you into that side of the hobby?
I do like to follow the games as they come out. Games several months benefit of the doubt as far as their software, just because some things need to come out because of a trade show or a movie, and they come out in odd ways at odd times, and that just is the nature of the industry. In the 90s, Williams used to put their games on test in their basement and keep them there for months, and they were essentially beat on and worked up by their own employees, then put in one location. And that model just doesn't happen anymore. Stern needs to get their stuff out the door because they're making games on demand. They got to get the games built and out, and they have a really sharp ability to update their games and change the code over time. I've been very impressed with the new code on Star Trek, but I could not believe how many people were just ripping them on the internet before that. Just let them do their job. Let these people do what they do for the love of the game. Star Trek code was fine. If there was no code updates, fine. So Yorian can kick my ass on it, and people can time out to get to Kobayashi. It was still a good game. Now it's a fantastic game. But without that extra effort, and I think there has to be also a reason for people to want to make that effort. And if they're getting met on the internet with just jokes and you guys suck, and here's a picture of a skull working on a computer, and this is the lots and lots of hours for the benefit of our players. And I don't know, that was going overboard there.
Well, our connection got a little shaky in there. Somebody's going to think I edited you, which was not the case. I think that there's this sort of like this weird thing happening as pinball has in the last, probably 5 to 10 years really taken off as a home environment thing where people are buying games right out of boxes for their houses. There's this feeling that if I'm going to spend all this money, I want this thing done on day one, and that's just not really the model of pinball as it is right now, and I guess that's why we're kind of getting that pushback.
Yeah, that's fine. I think if people should know by now that that's not what's happening, and if you don't want to buy a game for the 6 months that it takes to find out whether it's going to be good, then don't buy it. Yep. People still want to buy their games on day one, or if there's an LE system. I'm not a big fan of the LE limited system right now. It's causing people to want to get in on a game that they're only going to be making a couple hundred of, and then the rest of them will be sucky by comparison. Like that. That's not a great motivator for someone. I can see how a person buying an LE and spending all that extra money, then to find that the game isn't what they expected, they should feel a little hosed by that.
Yeah, I think that's it's just this weird in between business models we're caught between. Gary Stern will come out and say, hey, we build for operators, but then sell a third of their games to home environments, and that there's some pitfalls to that, I guess. And do you think you're still getting better as a pinball player?
I definitely do think I'm getting better as a pinball player, and it's mainly from watching others play and figuring out some better optimization on decisions. So watching Elwin play, you see him in multi-ball, and he will just hold a ball on the flipper and let a second ball come down back to that flipper to trap both on the same side, and then do something about them to separate. It's slow, it's methodical, it's plodding in a way, but it's also incredibly effective because all you have in the multi-ball is the ability to control those two balls until one of them goes down. And I can look at Papa 13, as we now have video of these finals, and I can say I lost Papa 13 because I made bad decisions about ball control in the multi-ball in the final ball of Creature from the Black Lagoon. And I can try to adjust and make better decisions. I don't think my aiming skills are certainly not improved. In recovery, those are getting better. Partially because my shooting is getting worse. I'm sure Josh Sharp has talked about this. His recovery skills are second to none, and he'll say it's because his shooting sucks.
Do you practice much? I know I've read many interviews with you where you say you don't play a whole lot of pinball.
I think I'm just lucky that I don't feel I need to practice. Maybe it's because I put in so much time in high school and college and other tournaments. But I think it's, to some extent, a stamina issue. You come out to Papa and you're going to play 10, 12 hours a day of pinball for 4 straight days. And the 4th day is the most important day, so you better be on your top game by then. I just run out of energy if I was playing more pinball than that. So at Papa, for example, people asked me to join them for a game or go practice on games. I did not play a single game other than the games that were competitive. I only qualified, I only played classics, I only played finals. I did not play any other pinball until the tournament was over.
Do you like watching pinball if you're not there playing? Do you enjoy watching the streams or the video after the fact?
I do enjoy I don't enjoy watching myself lose. No. But I do watch it because I want to learn that cost me a tournament. If I had done those better or made a different decision about what skill move to use, I had a chance to win. Instead, I screwed up. And you've got to learn that. If you don't follow up on some of those things, you're not going to get any better. But I also like watching these other streams, both to get the opinions of the commentators and also just to see what people are trying. It's amazing to just see how many players have strong nudging, control, strategic decisions now. And I have to say, I think the Papa video series is responsible for a good amount of this. the ability for someone to get better at pinball now in a short amount of time is nothing like it was 20 years ago. If you wanted to get good at pinball, you basically were in an apprenticeship where if you were nearby to Neil Schatz, you could learn a lot fast. If you weren't near to Neil or any of the other great players, you were host. The only time you were going to get better is by going to a tournament and playing those people. Now you have opportunity to see machines, to see skills, to see the recorded tournament footage from YouTube. Someone brand new to pinball can get great within a year, which was just not possible before.
I think for a lot of people, myself included, the Papa tutorial videos, you are sort of the face and the voice of a large majority of the learning via video. Are you done doing those tutorials? Are there more to come? What's that been like? What's the plans for the future?
There'll be a lot more tutorials being filmed. The filming of tutorials is subject to my availability in Pittsburgh. As it is, I work in textbook design and work with teachers. And I was traveling to Pittsburgh once a month for 3 years. I don't go there nearly as often as I did then, but I'd work with the schools, and then when time was up, I'd just go over to Papa and we'd film something. So we banked a lot of tutorials. There are a few, there may be one or two that are banked that haven't been shown yet. I don't remember. But there'll be definitely a lot more to film. And at first, it was just kind of, well, these cameras are here. What are we going to do with them? And the format of those tutorials, the multi-camera system that's been used, a lot of that is due to the Papa TV Kickstarter and the efforts of Mark Steinman and the rest of the Papa crew to just make that work. It really is something that would not have been possible 5 years ago, I think.
Absolutely. Do you have any experience, or have you played any of the virtual pinball that's out there?
Yeah, my favorite virtual pinball right now is the Time Shock game, which is out for iPad and iPhone. It's called Pro Pinball.
Yep.
And it's $3 for a game that's fantastically designed. That's kind of got a little bit of Attack from Mars, Star Trek Next Gen, and Terminator 2 rolled into one. It's a great game, and now they're making a real one of that game from the Silver Castle, I think.
Silver Castle Pinball, yeah, they're gonna make that thing for real.
That's unbelievable. The physics on that game, on the Time Shock game, are incredible. I have done live catches on that game. I have done drop catches, bounce overs, the things you expect to happen, the cradle separations, all of that stuff can still be done in those games. It's a matter of physics to me that I prefer that to the pinball arcade only because of physics. I'm not sure why, but I think the pinball arcade setup is designed for people to be able to play the game for a nice long time and have marathon games. And for me, I'm just not interested in that. I don't want extra balls. I want to play a 3-ball difficult game, and Time Shock is better for me for that reason. It's outstanding that Pinball Arcade exists and has the opportunity for people to play games who wouldn't otherwise play. And like one of the most popular videos on the Papa site is the Ripley's Believe It or Not gameplay video. And it's strange. You would never think that would happen, but it's because of Pinball Arcade. That Ripley's was one of the first 4 default tables in Pinball Arcade. And so suddenly there was all these people wanting to know how to play Ripley's.
I have noticed, I swear that there is, when a new game is released, you will see prices of that game trend upwards. I've tracked it a few times, and I notice I get emails about games as soon as they're released on Pinball Arcade, because there is I think there's a lot of people who don't own games of their own yet, and they're playing games on either their iPads or their consoles or whatever, but that's their sort of reach into pinball right now if they're not playing on location.
Yeah, and the same thing happens with the videos sometimes. I think we wrecked the market for TX Sector.
Oh, absolutely. It's funny how that is. And I think the same thing goes, I noticed last year, Papa 17, Alien Star is used in the A-Bank, and there's threads all over Pinside and the internet the next week. Hey, looking for an alien star because people saw this game, and I'm wondering if it's Space Station this year because that seemed to be the kind of slightly forgotten game that was brought back to the limelight this year.
Yeah, I had barely played Space Station except at Jake and Teresa's house up in Maine. They have one, and they invited me over to play it, and I was like, this is a pretty fantastic game. It's so bizarre and different that it's just interesting. And I love games with weird layouts like that. Wheel of Fortune is one of my favorites from the last few years as far as the layout of the game and just the opportunity to make different decisions and see weird things happening with the ball. I don't want to see like Spanish Eyes or something where there's a pop bumper between the flippers or crazy layouts like the 50s games had. But some variety has been interesting.
Do you have any rhyme or reason when you're playing your ticket at a tournament like Papa, especially Papa, where everything needs to be happening on one ticket? If you're playing a mix of games that may be very different speeds or different eras, does that factor into which order you're going to play them in, or not so much?
This is a great question. I think it's something that people don't tend to focus on very much, maybe because Papa is a unique event where you do have to play such a ticket. I want to play my favorite game last. No questions asked. Do they want to walk up to something that they're shaky on, or do they want to walk up to their dream machine? So you want your absolute best game last in the same way that you would want your fastest runner to be the last leg of a relay race. Besides that, I want to play the games that are the boringest, drag out, knock down, nothing ever happens games possible. Because you're trying to reduce variation. You're trying to reduce the ability for you to have a crappy game and get a 0. And so if you can play some boring stuff like CSI, God, I mean, I don't know what happened with CSI, but it's basically the boringest game ever. If you're playing it for score, because you're focused on bonus multipliers, you're focused on shooting the same ramp over and over and over again. And on the one hand, it sucks, but you're not really there for the enjoyment of pinball in that moment. You're trying to qualify to win 10 grand. And if you can make that one of your 5 games and just crank it out, that's where it's at. And so for me, I wanted the last 2 games of my run always to be Funhouse and Simpsons, which are both games I really love to play. Simpsons especially. And if I can walk up to Simpsons saying, all right, I need 50 million on Simpsons to qualify, I feel pretty confident about that. Or if you send me up to Creature and you say you must get 500 million, I'm not one or game 2, so that I'm not as I'm not nervous about it by the time I get to it.
Absolutely. What is your strategy when you're playing in the classics banks? Because classic tournaments, I think, are a little bit underrated to people maybe listening to this show who are just getting into competitive pinball, in that it almost seems like the other tournament a lot of times. And I've been at tournaments where they said, oh, are you playing? And I said, well, just classics. And people look at me like I'm crazy. I love classics in tournaments. What's your strategy on a lot of those older games that maybe the EMs that not deep rules, maybe something quite repeatable needs to happen, but often I don't know the rules of these games when I get up to them. How do you approach a game like that? Are you watching again, or do you learn it?
I'm watching, and I'm looking for survival tips. And there's a couple things to do, which one is ask people what they're playing and why they're playing it. So there were people on day 1 at Classics choosing high-low ace, I guess it was. And someone would describe the game and like, oh yeah, you just make all these targets. And once you make all the targets, the whole game opens up to you and you get a huge score. And my reaction to that is, well, if you don't get all the targets, you're screwed. So I would choose actively not to play that game in a qualifying or a Grand Prix or something that's more controllable. You're going to get your shots. You're going to get your opportunities. That's why you see such long lines for Argosy. That's why you see long lines for Harlem Globetrotters, even though Harlem Globetrotters is pretty random. I think that in classics qualifying, you have to be willing to change up and go play a different game because something's not working, or because you learn that this other game is actually pretty good for your skill set. I qualified Classics 2 by switching to Satin Doll a game which I really didn't know anything about. And other players were like, no, you should play this. Here's why. And sure enough, it was really right up my my alley as far as a skill set. Then I proceeded to crap the bed on it in the first round of finals, and off you go. So there's more variation in it, and it means that anybody can win, which I think is a wonderful thing. Those games, it's one of the reasons why Pinburg has an EM in every bank, and a game that's older than, I think, 1985 in every bank as well. So half of the games at Pinburg are going to be not necessarily luck boxes, but there's more variance and there's more weird stuff that can happen. It's also a hugely different skill set. Nudging matters more. If you talked to me 10 years ago, I just hated classics.
That's interesting. I talked to a lot of players who kind of have this. I think they've played Attack from Mars so many times that they roll up to a game like Grand Prix, and it's sort of a breath of fresh air. It's not simple per se, but more basic in what you're trying to do. And there's something very, I don't know, something very homely. It feels like you're at home playing Firepower or something like that. And I think it's enjoyable to watch too.
Yeah, it's also neat to watch players you respect just getting their asses handed to them by a game too. That Paragon still kicks everybody down, no matter what. I think I was in a group on Paragon in the final, and the best score was 80,000.
Yeah, yeah.
But then you have another game on Paragon some other day where the lowest score is 400,000, and it's just a lot more random chance and a lot more paying attention. There's a lot of nudging in EMs and early solid states that happens in the top half of the playfield that I still see a lot of players don't even bother with because they're so used to not dealing with nudging skills unless the ball is in danger of draining down the bottom. But that manipulation of the game that can happen on the top half, Target Pool probably is one of the greatest games ever for understanding that manipulation. Top half, you have these slingshots that act as kickers. And they can be flippers. You can push the ball into lots of different things using them. And once you realize that that's possible, you also realize that's possible on Addams Family. That's possible on Star Trek. Yeah, and you can save a ball by making a skill move in the top half of the playfield that causes it not to drain at the bottom half. That being proactive like that is something you have to do on the early solid state and EM games that pays off on the modern games.
Absolutely. So I noticed when I first saw you play, I watched you put your initials in somewhere, and I don't even remember where it was, but they weren't your initials. I believe you used your son's initials. Is that correct?
Yeah, my son is Aaron Jacob Kerens, so I use AJK, and my only insistence to my wife on how we named our child is that the initials must be in alphabetical order so they can be more easily entered on the pinball machine.
That's really funny. How old is he?
Aaron is 6, and he does play pinball often more than I do at home. He plays a lot of Simpsons. I have Simpsons and a World Cup Soccer, and so he'll talk to friends about playing the Simpsons, and he won't understand why they don't have that experience like they have the experience of playing the Wii, or they have the experience of watching a cartoon.
That's really funny. He may be the only person in the world that has that experience. I like that. So, I appreciate you coming on tonight. We're going to wrap this up, and I do apologize. We had some little communication dropouts here throughout the interview. What else would you say we can do to promote pinball, keep pinball going, just as people listening to this from one of the top players in the world? What would you say to the average listener?
Well, the critical thing is just getting pinball machines in front of people to play.
Yep.
Especially kids. There are opportunities for kids to play pinball, and I think that with Replay FX, the goal is to expose thousands of people who would not normally play pinball to it. So all of the advertising for Replay FX calls it a gaming festival, an arcade festival. It almost doesn't talk about pinball at all, actually. It's in there, but it's not the major thing. The 700 players who are coming for Pinburg and the fans of Papa and the people who are already coming out for it anyway, they're coming no matter what the advertising is. But if we can draw 5,000 more people within Pittsburgh to come out and see that pinball is awesome, now we've hooked that many more people into it.
Absolutely, and the Replay FX Arcade and Gaming Festival is...
Yeah, it's July 30th through August 2nd.
Are you going to be taking part in anything other than just running the 700-person Match Play Pinburg?
Yeah, it actually takes more than one of us to run it. Doug Polka is the tournament director. Kevin Martin will be running the software. Me and some other folks will be running around doing rulings the whole time. There will be some time to actually get to play some games and have some fun, because Pinburg will be over by the middle of the third day of the 4-day festival.
There you go.
I've got all day Sunday to enjoy.
What's your schedule like for the rest of the year as far as getting out on the circuit and playing some of the big tournaments?
I'm going to definitely be at California Extreme in mid-July. I always try to get to the expo in October if I can. And then other than that, it's going to be pick and choose. I was really hoping to get to Cactus Jacks in Oklahoma City, but it doesn't look like that's going to be happening because I have a work commitment that has interfered with that. And I'm hoping someday to get out to the Northwest Pinball and Arcade Show. The tournament there is run with an interesting match play format. And the show looks to be, it's pretty low key. There's a lot of fun people out in that area to visit and hang with. There's just so much going now. The fact that Stern is continuing to make pinball machines. They were the only game in town, and they could easily have just given up when they were only making 500 wheels and 500 CSIs. And they didn't. They kept at it. So we owe them a huge debt of gratitude for continuing to make great pinball machines.
I agree completely. Bowen, thank you very much for coming on tonight. I know we have a little feature we have planned that we're going to get going here for the show with you and I talking games in the upcoming episodes. I'm looking forward to doing that, and looking forward to chatting again real soon. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
I could talk to Bowen about pinball for hours and hours on end. He has really well-informed and well-thought-out opinions on everything from games to tournaments to the history. He definitely is one of the great minds in this hobby, sport, whatever. And I didn't even ask him on the show, is pinball a sport? I get that email from a lot of listeners say, hey, make sure you ask all the players if it's a sport, because that's kind of an arguing point. But I did tell him I was going to ask him that ahead of time, and I will just let you know that I think he leans towards, at a high level, pinball being a sport, possibly. But maybe next time we get Bowen on, we'll ask him that, or I'll preface one of his tournament game tip technique section that we're going to do for future shows. Maybe we'll get his thought on that officially on the record. But again, apologies for any dropouts. Thank you so much for Bowen coming on the show. Thank you guys for listening. Episode 156 is right around the corner. I will tell you that there will be emails answered in 156. I've got a lot of email. Appreciate it. We're going to be at the Midwest Gaming Classic this weekend, so if you're there, come find me, say hello, and we'll play nickel games, right? Nickel games. Anyway, take care.